Welcome in to another edition of the Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC. I'm your host, Seth Burchett, joined alongside my co-host and partners in crime every Friday night, Chuck Ellis, and the founder, commissioner, and everything SBFFC, the good Dr. Brian Harwood. Guys, how's it going tonight?
Good evening, sir.
Always a good time. Always best of luck. Good weekend, everybody. I actually had time tonight to post a show link on Twitter. I actually had time tonight to do that. I last couple of weeks in my school has been really busy with work, and hadn't been able to check my fantasy leagues at work. But I had some extra time on my hands this afternoon to do a couple things. So I feel like I'm getting caught up.
Yeah, same here. Things very busy for me as well. Fall break this week for me, so I'm gonna relax and maybe do a little fishing, a little less fantasy research for me this week coming up.
This upcoming week?
Yeah, this upcoming week. Yeah,
I'll be on fall break the week after that.
Well, they couldn't sync it up for us. I mean, they had to have us separated on the fall breaks because it was just going to be too much destruction if we were on it together.
That's pretty much right. I would imagine that. I would concur with that statement.
Well, we've got a good show planned for you tonight. Thanks to everybody who is watching in on the TN2M network of shows here on YouTube. We appreciate them for letting us steal their subscriber base for once a week. If you haven't, check out their stuff. Give them a like and subscribe, all of that good stuff from the YouTube side. But we've got a few things on slate tonight. We'll talk about the game last night, which was a little surprising to me. We will talk bye-week blues. We'll talk about that nasty injury bug that just doesn't seem to quit this season. We're going to have a serious conversation. I'm looking forward to that. And take your stardom, sit-em questions and your trade questions as well. Where do we want to start tonight, guys? Do we want to talk about the game from last night?
Sounds like a good spot to start to me.
Financially, no, but professionally, I'll go along with
it. Well, I looked at that game, and I didn't lay any down on it, but I thought about hammering the under, and I'm glad I didn't because that overhit just barely, but that overhit. But, the story for me out of the game, there were really two. One is Mac Jones is a tough SOB because he got hammered a few times and he just kept getting back up so that was one of the first things that came out of that for me. But from a fantasy perspective, were we all wrong to pass on Christian McCaffrey early on? Chuck, I mean, he was a guy that we were out on. I think a lot of people were out on him at least as early as some people were drafting him. I mean, he went as high as or low, I guess, as 11 or 12 in some divisions in the SBFFC. Might have dipped into early second in some leagues around the world. But were we wrong about him? Because it seems like he is a fantasy stud right now. He has 39 catches all by himself, and we're just 5 games into the season, at least for them 5 games in. Were we wrong about him?
Yeah, as a man that prides myself on being honest, I was out on McCaffrey this year, not due to his potential, but due to him, his injuries. And with the lack of weapons that San Francisco currently has, he is really the show. And they are using him, and fantasy owners that took the risk are paying huge dividends for them right now. I take my hat off to him. He's really playing well.
Well,
Dr. Harwood, were we wrong?
Not yet, because the season's still young. He might go down next week. Or may go down 2 weeks. Remember last year, McCaffrey had some healthy games, and then about mid-season got hurt. Can he last the whole season? I mean, this is only 5 games here. I mean, can he really hold up a full season? I mean, yes, he's been really good for the first 5 games, but he was that way last year, and then he got hurt again.
Well, and it seems like there's something in the water there in San Francisco because everyone's hurt except right now McCaffrey. And if you'd have told me that going into the season, I would not have believed you. But I mean, last night, look at everybody that they had out. Kittle has been out. Brock Purdy didn't play. Pearsall, Jennings. It seemed like their entire offense was out, and the only offense they really had was. Or at least going into the game, was Tungus and McCaffrey. But, I mean, looking at the stat lines, Kendrick Bourne, is that a guy that should start to be on people's radar?
I tell you what, he played with Mac Jones in New England, and damn if he didn't come out chucking the ball to Kendrick Bourne last night. But what I found odd was at no point in the game did the Rams change the defense they were playing. They were setting back in that super nickel that they play, and Mac Jones was picking them apart, 5-6 yard passes all night long up and down the field, and they never changed. I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I mean they play that we're going to keep everything in front of us and deal with it later type of defense. It seems like it definitely was not working for them. Kendrick Bourne had 10 catches, 142 yards on 11 targets. So is he a guy that you target going into next week's waivers? Because obviously you can't pick him up maybe you can in some leagues depending on how your waivers are structured. But in a lot of the SBFFC type formats, you're not going to get a chance at a guy like that. You're going to have to wait till next week. Do you spend money on him? And if so, Dr. Harwood, what percentage of your budget do you spend, especially if you need a wide receiver or you need a bye-week fill-in?
Well, Kendrick Bourne may have already been signed in a few leagues because we knew Wednesday he was going to be playing. If you're a Ricky Pearsall or a Juwan Jennings owner, or if you're a guy that drafted Brock Purdy, I'd probably would go 15, 20% to get him next week. Now, he'll probably go from order because you're going to have some guys panicking. But is Pearsall going to be returning next week? I hope so because I got a lot of shares of him. But Bourne, no, he's had some good success. He's had really some good games over the past few seasons when he's had the opportunity. And, September 21st, 4 catches for 38 yards as well. So it's not like last night was his first game he played. All he was doing was waiting for an opportunity. And with the bye weeks coming up hot and heavy, deserves a spot on the roster. If you can drop somebody that can do that, I'd say 15, 20% would be good. He'll be a hot waiver wire if nobody gets hurt this week for the season.
I'm not confident in that because it seems like every week we've got a big name going down. This past week it was Malik Neighbors and then Tyreek Hill. It feels like every week a big name is going down. And even some of those names that are trendy but not huge. I mean, Trey Benson being out, that opens up Demarcado, however you say his name. I don't know. Potato. It's like the Fantasty football power hour, which we had briefly for about 5 minutes this afternoon. Wrapping up the game from last night, obviously there were, because I don't know that we want to spend a ton of time on it, but there were some fantasy implications. Obviously, you had big name players, Puka, Devontae Adams, Kyron Williams stand out for the Rams, and then obviously, no kidding. And then obviously McCaffrey for the 49ers. Any final thoughts before we move ahead to the week that will be, not the week that was?
If you're in a survivor pool, really watch picking teams that play on the Thursday night that are favored, especially if they are playing a home game in the division on Thursday night, because Thursday night seems like it kind of messes some people. It knocked me out of a $100 survivor pool I was in. So it's a good thing, though. Matt Krantz told me to not pick the Rams on 3 survivor entries, so I took away 2 of them. So I would like to praise him for that. And but on survivor pool on Thursday nights, I think it's too risky.
Yeah.
And that Thursday night game is, I feel like it's unpredictable. And, even, from a scoring total, a lot of times you get a lower scoring game. Got a little bit of a higher scoring game last night. And it feels like that Thursday night game is just unpredictable. Chuck, your thoughts from the game last night?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out, and I've seen this a few times already this year, is people punching at the ball and not necessarily hitting the ball, but punching the player. And you've seen it last night with the Kyron Williams fumble. They go to punch the ball and end up punching the guy in the head. So should that not count as the same as hitting the quarterback in the head? Should that not be a penalty? I don't know. Maybe it's too ticky tacky. But
He's not
if you're
Patrick Mahomes.
right, if you're going to call it on one player, it should be consistent across the board.
I would guess that the NFL's argument to that would be the intent of the intent is to punch out the ball, and that would be my guess. But I agree, if somebody gets punched in the head, that they're getting that right. Should be a penalty.
Correct. The ball's down here. It's not like it's up here by his helmet. So if you're punching, what are you looking at when you swing?
Nothing. You're just swinging at that point, and it might not rise to the level of ejection, but personal foul. Certainly, I think you could make a case for that.
Absolutely, agreed.
Well, let's take a look at talking about the week it was, and I mentioned it briefly, Dr. Harwood, but that injury bug is alive and well, and it's around every week. This past week, 2 big-time receivers going out for the season in Malik Neighbors and Tyreek Hill. Thoughts on those injuries, and also who steps up and potentially can have fantasy value in the loss of those 2 players?
I'll tell you, Tyreek Hill has been playing pretty recklessly over the last couple of seasons. I think it was a matter of time before he got hurt. I hate to be morbid when I say that, but it was in my mind when I was going through these drafts.
Well, I don't know that it's morbid. You're not killing him, Dr. Harwood. You're just saying that an injury was kind of on the horizon.
And I'm going to say, and with more and more injuries, it seems like, it's like a few years back before COVID, if a guy was questionable or doubtful and you didn't know until Sunday morning at 10:45 whether he was going to play or not. This year, the injury bug has hit so bad, these players are being ruled out before Friday afternoon, which makes it easier on us from a management standpoint of multiple leagues that we do. But it's depressing as well that you spend all this time doing this research. And, my buddy Brandon Murchison said it best. You go to doing all of those research and time, and you do all the research and the prep work, and you make these rankings and everything. And he comes out, and now you've got to start guys like Rico Dowdell and Kendrick Bourne over the wide receivers we have now. I mean, that's what the injury bug has came to. As it's disappointing, and it's only going to get worse going down the stretch.
Yeah, Chuck, it feels like it's never going to end. I mean, it's every week a big name player is going down, if not for the whole season, for a significant period of time. I mean, when you look at the first round of drafts or first 2 rounds of drafts, you've already got some pretty significant injuries. I mean, Malik Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb comes to mind, even though Lamb's not out for the whole year. You still have a lot of guys that are going down, and it feels like it just will not stop. It's like the nosebleed that just keeps going and going and going. How do you manage it as a fantasy owner?
Yeah, I mean, it's the NFL, and injuries are part of the game. I'm going to touch a little bit on the Tyreek Hill injury during my serious segment, but you're seeing a lot of leg injuries. And for the Giants, we'll talk, since the big injuries this week, we'll go with Malik Neighbors and the Giants. That's very unfortunate. He's a young guy. We really would have loved to see what kind of chemistry him and Jackson Dart could have had together. But when one door closes, another one opens. It's next man up. So now you're going to see guys like Darius Slayton get more involved again. You might even see Jalen Hyatt become viable again. You don't know. And down in Miami, now Jalen Waddle is in the limelight. It's his game now. And you had Darren Waller catching touchdowns last week. So it's next man up in the NFL. It's really, really sad that these injuries are happening, but it's part of the game and the show goes on. Next guy up, let's get her done.
Is it next guy up or is it last man standing?
Well, it can be both. Unfortunately, Dr. Harwood, it feels like one of the guys we talk about guys stepping up. Chuck mentioned Darius Slayton. It feels to me, and maybe this is just me being a homer, but it feels like the guy that becomes, I don't want to necessarily say a must start, but in bye week situations, a must start. A guy like Wan'Dale Robinson's stock goes way up because he's already getting targets, and now you have to think his target share is just going to go up that much more with Neighbors being out. Am I wrong to think that? If you've got him sitting on your bench, you probably haven't played him a whole lot. Is he a guy that you've got to put in your lineups now, or is it wait till we can see?
I like Robinson, I really do, and I think Elik Ayomanor may play more since Calvin Ridley might be hurt. Wan'Dale, I'm not trying to change the subject on the player, but Wan'Dale Robinson has got a lot of talent, but can Jackson Dart find him? Because he went a lot toward Darius Slayton last week. I'd like to see what happens this week before I make a decision about Robinson every week.
The only thing that I'll say about Robinson is he's not necessarily a deep threat. He's a guy that runs a lot of crossers. He's a guy that they like to just get out in open space. They'll throw quick screens to him. So from a deep threat perspective, I feel like it's Darius Slayton. But I do think that it opens up opportunities for owners, especially this past week. I picked up Darius Slayton in all of the leagues that are important to me and probably overpaid him because I don't think I have a win in any league that's important. I have one of the best 0-4 teams you'll ever see and have just been, unfortunately, injuries or making the wrong play or whatever the case is. But it's not about my 0-4 teams. Probably will be 0-5 teams. It's about your teams. And we're going to answer your trade questions, your start 'em, set 'em questions as well. But right now, we are going to take a break. We are going to hear a word from our sponsors and come back and talk more fantasy football and just football in general. Who knows? Maybe a little life advice here on the Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC on the TN2M network of shows. Be back in a minute after a word from our sponsors. That was a word from our sponsor, Trophy Smack. Check them out, TrophySmack.com, for all of your fantasy sport championship needs, trophies, belts, chains, flags, helmets, maybe even Dr. Harwood, if you ask him nicely, will make an appearance or shoot a cameo video for you. But check them out. We certainly do thank them for sponsoring the show. That is TrophySmack.com. Continuing the conversation, and we'll get to Tyreek Hill in the serious conversation, as Chuck has put it. But I do want to talk bye week blues. Who are the guys this week, Dr. Harwood, that you think are the toughest to replace? Who are the guys that you're dependent on every week, and this week they're in a bye, and you got to find somebody to plug in? Maybe you don't have great depth. Maybe you're scouring the waiver wire for somebody. Does anybody stand out as a guy that you definitely need moving forward? And for this 1 week, and that one's going to hurt to not have them in the lineup. Who sticks out in your mind?
Well, I'm going to say this, Seth and Chuck. Let's get back to Christian McCaffrey. We were talking to Perdos last week. Me and Jeff Toms, owner, Run CMC in the overtime division of the SBFFC. His running backs in his roster, he has McCaffrey, Devin Ricardo from Arizona, Devin Singletary, DeAndre Swift, who's on a bye. There's a bye week blue right there. And Tajay Spears and Chris Rodriguez. I've told him to be proactive for the last 2 weeks to get that second running back. And I told him, not all is lost. Even if you don't have a second running back to really play this week, hope that Christian McCaffrey scores more than your opponent's 2 running backs combined, so that one of his opposing players gets a low score. Well, guess what? Jeff Thomas' opponent this week had Kyron Williams, had Matthew Stafford, had Jake Tongas. He's already losing 82 points, 52.4 now.
That's what we call starting behind the 8 ball.
So
Yeah.
He had McCaffrey and Nakua versus Stafford, Williams, and Tongas. Now he's going to have a big game out of Baker Mayfield. He's going to have a big game out of Juwan Johnson or Quentin Johnston or Jalen Waddle or even Amari DeMarcado to keep up with him this week. And I think that's a situation that's hurt in that situation. Now, over here in the Tom Lawrence division, there was Pete Samuels, DJ Moore, bye. Jordan Love, bye. Jaden Reed, bye. Injured. Jonnu Smith, bye. Chances of winning against the Marauders, bye. But he's had to go with C.J. Stroud, a quarterback this week. Also going with wide receivers Travis Hunter and Cooper Kupp. And he's had to plug Chubb and Pacheco in the lineup. Now, luckily, his opponent has scored nothing as of yet. But his opponent also has Woody Marks. So that's going to be a situation to unfold there. I've seen a couple other teams that have had Kyle Pitts that's still in their lineup on a bye week, but they don't have a backup tight end at this moment to play for him. And
there's not a bunch of tight ends sitting on the waiver wire at this point.
There's not a lot of tight ends sitting on the waivers. If you had wide receivers on a bye week, then I don't think you're hurting that bad. One team had Drake London and Rome Odunze. They're on a bye. Well, guess what? He's got Shakir. He's got Michael Pittman. He's got plenty of running backs depth to put in for him. Barkley, Walker, Dobbins, Pollard. I mean, Dobbins and Pollard aren't going to set the world on fire right now, but they are playing. They are scoring points.
They're capable.
They are capable more than a preliminary wrestler.
You mean they're better than Iron Mike Sharp?
I'd say more of like Barry Horowitz or Stephen Barney.
Oh, okay. I can dig that.
But teams that lost Bijan Robinson, that might be a factor. If you're playing guys like Mercado, Pacheco, who may lose time to Michael Carter, it's going to depend on who you're playing. It's not necessarily how it's going to affect your team, but how your opponent's going to play against you.
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping that your opponent has more holes to fill than you do each week in terms of bye weeks. Chuck, is there a name or a team that stands out in terms of hurting fantasy owners this week on the bye? I mean, I talk about like we don't know that it's coming up. Every team's going to have a bye week. That's part of it. But it feels like there's a lot of key players this week, even though there's only 4 teams on the bye. It just feels like there's quite a bit of your top echelon point scorers coming from this week in buys. I mean, obviously Bijan Robinson stands out, but any of the Bears receivers, Jordan Love has been in a lot of people's lineups, Jacobs, and the list goes on. Is there anybody that sticks out in your mind as maybe the toughest to replace this week?
No, I mean you touched it with most of those guys. I mean, obviously Bijan Robinson, you don't replace him. You get somebody in there and hopefully they can score you 10 or 12 points. Like you said, Josh Jacobs, he's another one, a hard one to replace. And then Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams, those guys were just starting to click. So I think their bye came at a very unfortunate time. But with all these injuries floating around, you had a bunch of guys that were picked up on the waiver wire this week that can help your Demicados and your Michael Carters, and even the kid Davis for the Jets. I think he's going to get some touches this week. So hopefully you drafted a little bit of depth. But if not, and your guys are Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Josh Jacobs and Dunze and Moore, it's going to be a long week for you.
I think it depends on who you're playing. It's all about the matchup you're playing.
Yep.
Yeah, well, like I said, you're hoping your opponent's got one of those guys and not be able to replace them as effectively. And you're talking about guys being out. I believe I read today that Bucky Irving's out this week as well. I mean, if you're a Rashad White owner and you've got him sitting on your bench, because if you had drafted Bucky Irving, I'm hoping that you tried to pick up Rashad White, but I feel like that's one of those that people drafted earlier, Rashad White, that could be sitting on somebody's bench that could help them this week fill one of those holes.
Yeah, is it going to be White, or is he going to stay in his passing role and Sean Tucker get some early down looks? So there's a lot of question marks around some of these backfields this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more questions than answers. I do want to throw this out before we move to your serious conversation, Chuck. And you all can jump in on this. My biggest surprise from last week, I was just thinking about this as I was going through the schedule, and it hit me for a couple reasons. First of all, Vikings and Browns play in London at like 8:30. Make sure that you get up and check your lineups, because this past week, Jaylen Warren's out. Some people might have had Jaylen Warren in there, and it was sort of a surprise injury, but it was announced before the game. So get up, make sure you check your lineups, make sure those are nice and tidy before that game starts and the lineup locks. But the biggest surprise for me this past week was how good Jordan Addison looked. As I was looking at the schedule and seeing that the Vikings are playing in Europe again for the second week, they just stayed over there. I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing. But I thought Jordan Addison, for a guy that had not really worked out or not been able to practice, he's been suspended, coming off that 3-game suspension. I thought for a guy that had been off that long and not able to practice with the team, I thought he looked really, really good, and a guy that you're going to plug into your lineups now every week just based on how he looked, because he's getting targets. He looked good. Should have scored the touchdown, but didn't. Your thoughts on him, and was there a big surprise from this past week for you all?
Yeah, I think going back to Jordan Addison, he did look good. It's very unfortunate that he got chased down at the 1-yard line, because they were trying to come back in that game, and by not scoring, and then it took them 3 more chances to get in the end zone, it blew 2.5 minutes off of that clock, and it was huge. So yeah, I think Addison did look good. I'm curious though, the Vikings got to stay over there, and then Cleveland has to travel over there. So do we give the Vikings the advantage there, and how does that look for Dylan Gabriel? That's going to be some interesting stuff there, I believe.
Seth, what do you think about the Isaiah wide receiver for Cleveland?
If you were listening, if you've been a weekly viewer on this show, I brought his name up very early on. Mm-hmm. I knew they liked him. They signed him to a 3-year deal. Cleveland is not a team that signs somebody to a 3-year deal without plans for that player. I mean, even with Deshaun Watson, who is the biggest trade bust in history, they signed him to a long-term contract because the plan was to play him. Isaiah Bond is going to step into like a slot role. He's basically going to step into the number 2 role, and he's going to get targets. I mean, he had a pretty good game after Tillman went down. Tillman is on the IR, and it feels like because of his skill set, they're going to run a lot of like crossing routes, a lot of mesh concepts with him. And that's perfect for a young quarterback who's checking the ball down. So I think Isaiah Bond has a lot of upside. I don't know that I play him this week because you have to see how that offense runs with Dylan Gabriel first. I think the only guy that you start from that Browns offense is Quinshon Judkins. But outside of that, I don't know that I'd be comfortable unless I had to because of a bye week or an injury situation. But I think Isaiah Bond is a guy, if you don't have him already or if he is available out there, I think you have to go get him because I think he's going to end up being a guy that can be productive and be a plug and play in a situation where you have a bye week or injury situation.
Isaiah Bond, 007. He is projected on fantasy points this week to have 37 receiving yards this week. And I was listening to Jeff Mann's show on Sirius. Chuck, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He predicts his bet, like he made a prop bet parlay today for Minnesota and Cleveland. He thinks Justin Jefferson, 60-plus receiving yards, Isaiah Bond, 15-plus receiving yards, cook him in a parlay. Odds are minus 105. Do you bet that?
I think that's a
Bond.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson, he's got to get 60 receiving yards.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah Bond has to get 15 receiving yards. Minus 105 on a two-team prop parlay.
Yeah, I think I'll take that bet.
I'm going to say I don't think I would because I think that the one thing that Cleveland does well is lock up number one receivers. Denzel Ward is one of the best corners in the league, and they're going to put him on Justin Jefferson. I think Addison is a better play. I would look at Addison's prop number because I think that is more likely just because of who they're going to have on Justin Jefferson. Maybe I'm wrong. I certainly could be, but I mean, we've watched him. We've watched Denzel Ward lock up Jamar Chase, who I think most people agree is the best receiver in the league, almost every time they play. Okay. So
Jordan Addison, 41.5 receiving yards. That's the prop.
I'd hammer that.
The projection is 52 on fantasy points.
I'd hammer Jefferson,
that. Projected 75 yards. The prop is 72.5. Now let's eliminate Jefferson here. Let's say Jordan Addison. Let's give him 25 receiving yards.
Okay.
Let's go to 40. 40 receiving yards for Jordan Addison, 15 for Bond. Plus 130 now.
Yeah.
I like that better.
How much you want to play? How much y'all want to bet?
You said it's plus 130?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I put $50 on that big guy.
That's I'm just telling you as a Browns fan, and I watch the team regularly. Denzel Ward, he's probably not the best corner in the league, but he's top 5, and he's a lockdown guy, and they're going to put him on Justin Jefferson. Addison is going to get more of those targets, I think.
All right, so Chuck, Seth, you want to make a bet? You want to put some money? I'm getting ready to make this bet live on the air.
I mean, it's your money. It's not mine.
No, it's our money. I mean, we can all split this thing.
Yeah, I'll sell you $50. I'm in. Let's do it.
I'm gonna match that bet and bet 100 total. And then Seth, if you'd like to donate something, you can.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit out on it just because I'm on that teacher salary and I got bills to pay, man.
Bills to pay.
Yeah, it's hard times. But in terms of the bet, I like Addison's prop more. I like him on the over, and I think Bond over 15 is. I mean that's a home run. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm intrigued. I'm gonna play this here in a second, and then I'll share this with Chuck here, and we just go to the pay window.
In the pay window.
So before we get to our next break, Chuck, you scared me a little bit in our group text because you said, let's have a serious conversation. And I wasn't clear if we were having it in the group text. I thought what Dr. Harwood said. What's Harwood done or said to get us in trouble now? But you have some thoughts, and I want to give you the floor to discuss this before we take our next break and get to trade questions and start them, sit 'em questions. What's on your mind, and what is this serious conversation that you want to have with us and the listeners?
Well, I've been an NFL fan since 1985, so I've been watching football and an NFL fan for a very long time. There's some stuff I got to get off my chest that's been bothering me this week, and I'd like you guys to elaborate and our viewers to elaborate as well. So I want to rewind to last year when Roquan Smith tackled Chris Godwin, and Chris Godwin was out for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that multiple times, and in my opinion, Roquan Smith broke his foot on purpose. You could see it, and rewinding back to this Monday night on that sideline hit to Tyreek Hill, you seen the defender's shoulder snap in the air as he rolled over on Tyreek's leg. I feel like that was done intentionally. I feel like there's no place in the NFL for that, and that should be looked at a little bit closer, because whether Tyreek Hill has good character or not, I think that was done intentionally, and you possibly ruined this man's career, and you possibly ruined his livelihood. A couple other things that bother me: the NFL is short for not for long.
I agree.
You see Jake Browning struggling at the quarterback position, and the coach is saying the right things, but you have your star wide receiver who is pleading with you to at least throw the ball 10 yards when it's 3rd and 10, not throwing the ball 3 yards when it's 3rd and 10, and the coach pretty much shooing him away. That kind of bothers me a little bit. There's guys around the league you can trade for. You got another guy on the bench in Brett Rippon, who probably couldn't do any worse than Browning's doing right now. So why don't we give this guy a chance? And the last thing I want to get off of my chest is the Minnesota Viking game last week. Minnesota is going to tie this game, or attempting to tie this game. And I know in the final 7 minutes, again, a star receiver doesn't even get a look. I know Carson Wentz is running for his life a lot in this game, but when the game is on the line, you need to put the ball in your playmaker's hands. And at the end of that game, he throws 3 passes to the 3rd string running back, and he's throwing 4 passes to the 3rd string wide receiver, and Mr. Naylor. I think at some point you got to get your stars the football. The same thing with A.J. Brown. I know the Eagles are winning, but this guy wants to be part of the offense as well. He's not getting any looks. Let's start getting these guys the damn ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got to say about that.
You got that right.
Well, I'll address a couple of those things. I agree with you on the intentional hits, especially, and I think it's something much like they did the drop hit tackles. I think it's something that with a guy like Tyreek Hill going down, that they'll start to take a look at that and penalize it. The problem is they're never going to get a guy to say publicly, yeah, I meant to break his ankle or break his leg. And I think that's the bigger part of it. But I do think it's something that they'll take a look at to try to prevent those type of injuries, especially like the situations where you've got them gator rolling with a guy's legs. That's another pretty significant problem, I think. So I do think they'll look at it. It's just the problem is intent. And like I said, nobody's going to admit that they intentionally tried to do it, even though we know that happens. In terms of star receivers getting the ball, I'm all for it because my teams look awful, and some of it is because of situations like that. But in general, and I'm speaking from now I'm just a middle school football coach, so I don't have the level of knowledge as a lot of these NFL coaches. They've forgotten more about football than I know, I'm sure. And I'm a pretty knowledgeable guy. But even on my middle school team, the guys that make plays are the guys I'm getting the ball to. It does not matter the situation. It doesn't
Amen.
matter if we're backed up against the wall. If it is a losing proposition, you put the ball in the hands of the guys that make you plays.
I would
And
rather lose throwing to Justin Jefferson than not win not throwing to Justin Jefferson.
yeah, I mean, that's because he's a top 5 receiver in the league. You could argue he's the second best receiver in the league. And I just think it's on the coach in the Cincinnati situation. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. You have him as your backup quarterback because you believed potentially that he was capable. And if he's not capable, you find someone that is, because there's a serviceable quarterback somewhere, whether it's on a practice squad, whether it's the third string quarterback, whether it's somebody on the trade market. I saw earlier this week they were linked to both Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. You go out and find somebody that can at least push the ball down the field. I think the perfect solution for Cincinnati is Jameis Winston, because that guy will throw to anybody and force it in places it doesn't belong. But you know what? He gives you a chance. And I don't know that Browning does that now. He played well the first stint after the Joe Burrow injury a couple years ago. I thought he'd be fine. He's looked awful. And as much a part of anything with that is that offensive line. And maybe that's the bigger issue. You can't throw the ball, because I will say this, as a former offensive lineman, as a coach that has dealt with good offensive lines and not good offensive lines, if the quarterback doesn't have time to throw, you've got to put in quick stuff that hits really fast, because your quarterback's going to get killed.
That relates to Mike Tyson saying, everybody's got a plan until you get hit in the mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and I don't want to be rude here, guys, but I'm gonna cut it off, this conversation, just so we can hit the break and we can hit these stardom send them questions, because we've got a comment section full of them. So we're gonna take a break here and pay some love to our sponsors from Trophy Smack. You're listening to the Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC on the TN2M network of shows. That was a word from Trophy Smack. Check them out, trophysmack.com, for all of your fantasy championship needs. Trophies, belts, chains, flags, helmets, Dr. Harwood, whatever you need, they've got it there for you at Trophy Smack. Guys, let's hit some stardom sit-em questions and some trade questions, because we've had them in even before the show. The first one comes in from Wraith. He says, Shakir or McConkey in a flex this week? Who do you guys like?
Well, I know McConkey's playing against the Washington Commanders this week, and I know that defense has more holes than Swiss cheese, so I'm going with McConkey this week and every other receiver that the Chargers have this week.
This might be the week McConkey breaks out and plays like the second or third round player pick he was slated and projected and expected to be.
I'm going to go the other way here. I'm going to say Shakir, just because McConkey's not looked good. He's been overshadowed by Quentin Johnson. You still have Keenan Allen there. I think Shakir has become a favorite target of Josh Allen. And in a case where I'm not sure, I'm going to default to the better quarterback, and that certainly is Josh Allen here. So for me, it's Shakir, but if you're going on just the numbers, it's 2-1 McConkey here. Next question comes from Wraith. He says, is there any value in holding on to Isaiah Likely? I'll say yes, because I just don't think Mark Andrews is consistent, although he's come to life the last couple of weeks when Likely's out there and Lamar is out there, which he won't be this week. He's a favorite target of Lamar and has shown that in the past. Chuck.
Yeah, I agree with Seth. I think Andrews is just too inconsistent. Likely's younger, he's more athletic, and he obviously demands the ball when he's playing, and Lamar definitely likes him. So I would definitely say hold on to him a little bit longer. He's a midseason stash.
Dr. Harwood, keep Likely if you've got a bench spot for him, or cut him loose and find somebody that can help your team now.
I believe that Likely is worth a spot if you're in a deep 20 player roster league. This week's ranked 26th on tight ends on my rankings. If you're in a shallow bench league, no, drop him. But if you're in a league that would need tight ends down the stretch, if you're a believer that Mark Andrews is still going to stink, keep Likely. It really depends on your roster structure. And I believe that this guy is in a league, a 10 team with 20 men on the roster, pretty deep. I would hold on to him until you give a reason to prove me otherwise.
All right, Raids again. He was coming in with questions early. Would you trade Jonathan Taylor for Ashton Jeanty and Jalen Waddle? Dr. Harwood, we'll start with you.
Wraith, if you're watching the show right now, what wide receivers do you have right now that are not as good as Waddle? I want to know that before I answer this question about Jonathan Taylor, who right now is the number one running back in fantasy, and Jeanty is on the rise. He may pass Taylor up later. But I want to know, Waddle is an intriguing player here, and I could see him having a good season. But I want to know the wide receivers on your roster that Waddle could be an upgrade for before I would make this deal. So, Wraith, if you can post that on this chat, do it. We'll answer for the end of the show.
All right. Our next question comes from Hakuna Matata. And he says he got a trade proposal. He sends Woody Marks and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he gets Jonathan Taylor. He also has Breece Hall and CMC. Other receivers include A.J. Brown, Zay Flowers, Chris Olave, Ricky Pearsall. I like that trade. I think I pull the trigger on that trade. What do you guys think?
Well, Jonathan Taylor, you have to remember, I'm going to look at it from this angle here. Jonathan Taylor is the best player involved in this deal. He has a bye, and he has a bye week. I want to know when his bye week is for Taylor before making this move, but he's a lot better upgrade than Breece. But if you get both JT and CMC in that lineup, well, it's going to be dangerous to play every week for your opponent, because your opponent's not going to have two running backs that good.
I think Jonathan Taylor's top three. You pair him with Breece Hall and CMC. It doesn't matter which two of those guys you start at wide receiver. I make this trade. I smash accept on this trade.
Yeah, I do as well for a couple of reasons. Woody Marks looked like he had his coming out party in this last week, but I'm not 100% convinced he's going to have the type of production week in and week out that he had this past week. I need to see it first. You know what you're getting out of Jonathan Taylor. And I think you can find receivers that you can play for a week on the waiver wire week in and week out potentially. So I think it makes your lineup dangerous. I certainly would make that trade as well. Let's see what else. 0.5 PPR. Do you go Judkins or Kenneth Walker this week?
0.5 PPR.
FPPR.
Judkins or Kenneth Walker?
Judkins got Minnesota. I believe Walker plays the Bucks.
Pulling that up now.
I think I would probably go with Walker there, because I could possibly see that game being a little bit more high scoring than the Vikings-Browns game. So I believe I would start Walker there, only because of the matchup.
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say Judkins, just because the problem with Seattle's running back situation is if Zach Charbonnet comes out, and I think he's going to play this week, if he has a good series, they're going to keep going to Zach Charbonnet. They're riding the hot hand. It has been Kenneth Walker. With Judkins, he's going to be the guy. They're going to feed it to him 20 to 25 times a game. showed this past week. They're going to use him in the passing game. I think I go Judkins here because I think he is definitely probably going to get you a touchdown, or I think it's more likely that you get a touchdown out of Judkins than you do Kenneth Walker this week.
The only reason why I would not start Judkins is if they get off. If you're not a believer of the overseas international games, I think Judkins outscores Walker this week. I think Judkins is on the rise, and not because of Kenneth Walker's bad, or I don't think it's got anything to do with Charbonnet. I just think Judkins is a fresher talent right now. I think he's a hotter hand.
Steven wants to know, he's got one flex position open because of a bye week. Do you start Chase Brown, Wan'Dale Robinson, or Trey Tucker?
That's a
tough one.
Well, Chase Brown, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Trey. Now, Trey Tucker, I picked him up a couple weeks ago, and he has done nothing since.
I think for me, I'm going with Wan'Dale Robinson in this one, I believe.
I would say, Chase, the Cincinnati, they're in disarray. I've got Chase Brown at 14.6 fantasy points this week. I've got Wan'Dale Robinson at 10.7. So I would eliminate Robinson off the bat. I would go Chase Brown, Steve Raniker. You drafted him to start him. You've got to stick him out. It's highly unlikely you draft Trey Tucker in the second or third round. You probably picked him as a free agent. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm gonna stick with Chase, and I may hate myself in the morning. But you're gonna love Chase Brown tonight.
Well,
maybe in the morning. But I would stick with Brown.
I'm going to agree with Chuck here. I'm going to go Wan'Dale Robinson. I like the matchup better. The Giants are playing the Saints. Cincinnati is a train wreck. If this is a healthy Bengals team, I start Chase Brown. I know you drafted him early, and I'm the biggest Chase Brown fan, especially going into the season, as anybody. But without Burrow, without consistency in the passing game, Chase Brown is a lame duck. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is going to have double-digit targets. He's going to be in on a higher percentage share of the snaps. It's going to be more of they're playing not a great defense, a defense that has been shredded already this year. So I'm going to go Wan'Dale Robinson here.
Well, I tell you what, Robinson has a chance to make a great play, has a big play. Mm-hmm. Now, before we get to the Lewis Oswald question, who is a loyal owner in the high stakes in the SBFFC, does all the leagues from Minnesota, who's going to be better right now? Oswald thinks it's DeMarcado is going to be better than Carter. He's talking about the Arizona running back. Let's talk about that. Then we'll answer this Lewis second.
Well, question. I think if you're to a situation where you've got to play one of those two, you punt because you're in a rough spot. But if I had to choose one of the two, I'm choosing DeMarcado because they like to use him a lot in the passing game. And so because of that, I would go with DeMarcado.
So if you pick up Michael Carter as a free agent, Lewis Oswald said that it's a waste of money pretty much. Do we agree with that?
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. The only reason I pick him up is if I have DeMarcado too. So but the chance that you had DeMarcado already is probably not high. His question, we talk about Lewis Oswald, half-point PPR, one flex, Cortland Sutton, Travion Henderson, Jacoby Myers, or DeMarcado. Dr. Harwood, who are you going with here?
I'm going to go with Mr. Sutton for right now as the pick, because I think Bo Nix may have a decent week this week. And I would rank him, and I would rank Myers second. It's very close between Myers and Sutton. Lewis, I would consider who your opponent is playing if they've got any Denver or Las Vegas Raiders players on the roster, and then make your decision accordingly. But I would say right now, Sutton is the guy to go with. It's a very close vote. And if you decide to go with Myers, I'm not going to blame you. But I just think Sutton's got more of a chance to make a bigger play.
I'm going with Sutton. I think he's I think I've not been terribly impressed with the Raiders passing game. And let's keep in mind, Myers isn't even the first target in that passing game. It's Brock Bowers, assuming he's healthy. So I'm going to go Cortland Sutton here.
Yeah, trifecta. I'm going with Sutton, Myers, and then the two running backs are tit for tat. So for me, it's definitely Sutton.
So the Wraith has posted his other receivers. He's also got Pearsall, Metcalf, Pickens, Slayton, and McLaren. I think that solidifies it to me. You got to make that trade for JT.
Because if you can play Metcalf and Pickens every week, then go Waddle at the flex because you got McLaurin is inconsistent and injured, and so is Pearsall. I would do it, and then Wraith, if you do it, I want you to come back next week and see how your team plays Sunday.
Yeah, come back and see us sometime. That's kind of that's going to be our motto. Just come back and see us. Maybe next week. That would be a good week. But speaking of, I do want to mention something here because we haven't had a chance to talk about it. We've been hitting all this information pretty quick. In 2 weeks from tonight, we've got a very special night here on the Fantasy Football Power Hour. It's going to be Ladies' Night on the Fantasy Football Power Hour. We are going to have, Divas Night. Although you can call them divas, I'm not going to. I value my face a little bit more than that, Dr. Harwood. But we are going to have some of the ladies of fantasy football that play in leagues that have been successful and give their unique perspective on fantasy football. We're even going to have one on to answer stardom sit-em questions with us in one of the last segments. So, but what we also want to encourage is if you got a lady that plays fantasy football, we want to hear from her too. I'd love the comment section to fill up with ladies asking questions, stardom sit-em questions, things like that for us as well. But that is going to be on October 17th. 2 weeks from tonight, it's going to be Ladies' Night here on the show, and I cannot wait because the show will certainly be, no offense, guys, much prettier than when we are on here, as I have the face for radio, and here I am in front of a camera. So that is what it is. We've only got about 3 minutes left in the show, guys. Dr. Harwood, we'll start with you. Anything this week that sticks out? Any prop you want to talk about? Any matchup that you're particularly interested in this upcoming week?
I've got two things. And number one, I think Derrick Henry, I made a bet prop last night. I think he goes under 88.5 rushing yards this week. I bet that on DraftKings, and now the number is going below. He'll be lucky to get 80 rushing yards this week. And I bet that last night, and I'm trying to get my buddy Cranston going half with me. He's still researching, as he says, and he does a lot of good research for me. He was the one that actually pointed out to me. But I really like the under of Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry is starting to get into the twilight of his career as Baltimore is struggling right now. And also, there was a comment that you posted earlier. Steve Raniker was saying, how come you couldn't get the automatic quarterback when your player goes down? Websites like RT Sports and CBS Sports and the NFFC, they've done team quarterbacks. They've done team kickers.
Yep.
So they don't automatically put your backup in for the starting quarterback. But you can draft a team quarterback that can help with that situation. That some leagues I know do. So that might be something that we might play in a league to kind of test the waters for that, so to speak, kind of.
Yeah, I mean that's. I do think, though, in some respects, it's interesting for super flex leagues and things like that, where maybe you didn't bid a lot on your, or you haven't spent a lot of your free agency money. Quarterback goes down, you've got a lot of money to spend, and you're weak at your second quarterback. It presents opportunities in some leagues as well. Which I kind of like the gamesmanship of that. Chuck, anything that sticks out to you this week?
I believe I saw today the Giants-Saints game was over under 41.5. I do believe I'm going to be putting a couple pennies on the under 41.5 in that game. I just see that being a very low scoring game.
Yeah, especially with inexperienced quarterbacks, a lot of injuries. I still like, there's still fantasy value in that game, but I agree that one very well may hit the under for sure. The thing that sticks out for me this week is, I'm trying to get my first win in my major leagues. Not that anyone cares because it's my team, but I think the matchup I'm most interested in this week is Denver at Philadelphia. We'll see how real Bo Nix is. We'll see how real Cortland Sutton, J.K. Dobbins, R.J. Harvey, all of those guys are. And will A.J. Brown finally get the ball? All of those things we'll talk about next week. Final thoughts on the from the show tonight. We'll go around the horn. Chuck, we'll start with you.
Like I said earlier, get these superstar receivers the damn ball. And guys, if you have any questions and you're struggling with players to start and sit, start your studs.
Dr. Harwood.
Also, I'm looking over the SBFFC main event standings. Great job so far to my top 5 on the season leaderboard. Gene Polk first, Jeremy Samuel second, Albert Flores, a loyal watcher of the show, third. Been watching
Albert Flores, get some, baby.
Jeff Toms, number 4, and Mr. D. Munson himself, Darren Munns, the Clown Prince, who drafted Lynn Dawson in the 20th round, is in 5th place, and Jeremy Richardson still in 6th place. You got some good, awesome talent in the top 6. Keep up the good work, guys, and start your studs. I agree with Chuck. Don't teach studs, and just play the best matchup. And I don't want to see one SBFFC owner have a bye week player in that lineup come Sunday, because I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you.
Well, that's going to do it for the show tonight. My final piece of advice, get up, set your alarms, make sure that you check the injuries and the DMPs for the early game. Make sure you don't fall into a situation where you've got a guy in your lineup that is not going to play over in London. That's going to do it for the show tonight. For Chuck, for the good Dr. Brian Harwood, I'm Seth Birch, and you've been listening to the Fantasy Football Power Hour presented by the SBFFC here on the TN2M network of shows. Join us same time, same place next week here on the Fantasy Football Power Hour.